The great assembly hall of Concordia Prime stretched so far that the walls disappeared into artificial mist. 847 species had sent their representatives to this place, and now they all watched as one lone human stood before them. Ambassador Sarah Chen had walked this long path many times before. Each time she had carried hope that reason would prevail. Today she carried nothing but the weight of her species' future. The elder speaker rose from his crystalline throne. Thessalon was old beyond human comprehension, his body a lattice of living diamond that caught the light and threw rainbows across the chamber. When he spoke, his voice resonated through everyone's translator implants. The time for debate has ended. Humanity stands accused of crimes against the Pax Galactica. You have weaponized artificial intelligence. You have corrupted your own genetic code. You maintain military forces that exceed all reasonable defense requirements. How do you answer these charges? Sarah stepped forward. She had practiced this speech 1,000 times, but her voice still cracked slightly as she began. Elder Speaker, honored representatives, we answer that we did only what was necessary to survive. When the Krenth came to our colonies, they did not ask permission. They attacked without warning. They killed without mercy. Our people died by the millions before we could mount any defense. A ripple of clicking sounds came from the Krenth delegation. Their insectoid translator, a smaller species that lived in symbiosis with the predatory Krenth, spoke up. The Krenth acted within their nature. Humans should have submitted to the natural order. Sarah felt anger flash through her, but she kept her voice level. We refused to die quietly. We built AI to help us fight faster than any organic mind could process. We enhanced our soldiers to match the Krenth's natural advantages. We created weapons that could actually hurt them. And we won. Precisely the problem, said Vex Rao, the Xerix Collective's prime representative. His cybernetic body gleamed with chrome and synthetic flesh. You proved too effective at war. You proved too willing to break every convention that civilized species hold sacred. You are dangerous, Ambassador Chen. Your species is a threat to galactic peace. The Veltharian representative, a towering figure with 6 arms and skin like polished bronze, raised one hand. The Council has reviewed all evidence. We have consulted the precedents of 10,000 years of galactic law. The conclusion is unanimous. Sarah looked around the chamber. Not one species met her eyes. Not one voice rose in humanity's defense. Thessalon's crystalline body began to glow. Humanity is hereby declared unfit for civilized space. You are banished. All human colonies beyond your home system of Sol must be abandoned within 1 standard year. All human vessels must return to your system. Any human found beyond Sol after this grace period will be destroyed on sight. Any human vessel attempting to leave Sol will be met with total military annihilation. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. She tried to speak, but Thessalon continued. This is mercy, Ambassador. Many on this council voted for immediate sterilization of your entire species. Be grateful you are being allowed to live at all. You may keep your home system. You may keep Earth and her sister planets. But the stars are forbidden to you, forever. Sarah found her voice at last. You're condemning 4 billion colonists to abandon their homes. You're condemning our species to a slow death, trapped in one system. How is this justice? It is not justice, Thessalon said quietly. Your species has shown what it becomes when threatened. We cannot allow that threat to grow. The decision is final. You have 1 year. The great doors opened behind Sarah. The audience was over. She walked back down that long path, past hundreds of species who had just voted to cage humanity forever. Some looked triumphant, Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked simply indifferent. Earth received the news 6 hours later, accounting for the communication lag. Sarah watched the reaction from her quarters on Concordia Prime. The feed showed crowds in every major city. She watched people collapse in the streets, weeping. She watched the markets crash as 23 colony worlds became worthless overnight. She watched as parents tried to explain to their children that they would never see the stars their grandparents had fought so hard to reach. But she also watched something else. In Beijing, the military headquarters went dark for exactly 7 seconds before backup power engaged. In Geneva, the United Earth Council entered a closed session that would last for 3 days. On Mars, the shipyards stopped all civilian construction immediately. In the asteroid belt, mining operations suddenly began operating on emergency protocols, extracting resources at triple the normal rate. Sarah's personal communicator buzzed. The message was short, routed through so many encryption layers that it appeared as gibberish to any interceptor. But her implant decoded it instantly. Admiral Reeves sends his regards. The long night begins. We have work to do. She looked out the window of her quarters, at the massive space station, at the hundreds of alien ships docked there, at the peaceful galaxy that had just sentenced her species to death. They expected humanity to weep, to beg, to slowly fade into extinction in their one small system. They had no idea what humanity did when cornered. Sarah began packing her belongings. She had very few personal items here. She had always known this day might come. As she sealed the last case, she pulled up a classified file on her datapad. It was titled Contingency Omega. She had never been authorized to read it before. Now the authorization came through automatically. She scanned the contents, her eyes widening with each line. The file outlined a plan so audacious, so comprehensive, so utterly insane, that it could only have been conceived by humans who refused to accept defeat. A small smile crossed Sarah's face for the first time in days. They wanted to banish humanity. They wanted to cage the most stubborn, creative, vengeful species to ever reach for the stars. She began composing her response to Admiral Reeves. Just 3 words. I'm coming home. The transport that carried her away from Concordia Prime was one of the last official human vessels to leave Council space. She stood at the observation window, watching the station shrink behind her. In 1 year, the Council expected humanity to be broken, confined, defeated. In 1 year they would learn they had made the worst mistake in galactic history. The long night had begun. The evacuation of New Terra was broadcast across every human channel. Billions watched, as families loaded their belongings onto massive colony ships. Children cried as they left the only homes they had ever known. The elderly, who had pioneered these worlds decades ago, stared out windows at the cities they had built, knowing they would never return. Governor Patricia Okonkwo stood before the cameras, her face streaked with tears. We came to the stars with hope. We built lives here. We raised children here. And now we must leave it all behind because we dared to defend ourselves. This is the Council's justice. This is what happens when you refuse to die quietly. Her speech was replayed on every news network. The Council representatives monitoring human broadcasts noted it with satisfaction. Humanity was broken. The banishment was proceeding smoothly. They did not notice that Governor Okonkwo's left hand, hidden from the camera, made a quick signal. 3 fingers up, 2 down, a tap on her leg. They did not notice that when the last colony ship departed New Terra and its sister colonies, the population counts were exactly 15% lower than official records indicated. They definitely did not notice the massive drilling operations that began as soon as the ships left orbit. Admiral Marcus Reeves watched the evacuation feeds from his office on Mars. Unlike the rest of humanity, He was not weeping. He was counting. "Status report," he said to the holographic displays surrounding his desk. Commander Lisa Park appeared on one screen. "Kuiper Belt Construction Facility is at 40% capacity. We have 38 shipyards operating in electromagnetic silence. No signals detectable beyond 1 AU. Resource flows are being masked as normal mining operations." Another screen showed Dr. James Wu from the genetics laboratory beneath Europa's ice. "The Revenant program has cleared its third trial. Enhanced reflexes are stable. Neural network integration is holding at 97% efficiency. We can begin mass production when authorized." A third screen displayed Sarah Chen, who had arrived on Earth 2 weeks ago and immediately vanished into the intelligence community. "Council surveillance is exactly where we predicted. They have monitoring stations at the heliopause, but they're only watching for ships leaving the system. They're not looking inward. I've also confirmed the political situation. The Veltharians and Xerix are convinced we're beaten. The smaller species are nervous but compliant." Reeves nodded slowly. "Time to full operational capacity?" 8 months, Park said. "Maybe 7 if we push the schedule." "Push it. We have 11 months before the deadline. I want to be ready in 6. The screens went dark, and Reeves was alone with his thoughts. He pulled up a file that only 5 people in the entire solar system were authorized to see. It was the complete battle plan, compiled over the past decade by the most paranoid military minds humanity could produce. They had always known this might happen. Every first contact scenario included the possibility that the galaxy would not welcome humanity. So they had planned, and now those plans were being activated. On New Terra, beneath the abandoned capital city, Governor Okonkwo walked through tunnels that had not existed 3 months ago. The evacuees who had supposedly left on the colony ships were here instead, along with manufacturing equipment, food production facilities, and enough supplies to last a decade. "How many do we have?" she asked her deputy. 700,000 on New Terra alone. Similar numbers on the other colonies. The Council thinks we abandoned 23 worlds. We actually just moved everyone underground. Okonkwo smiled grimly. "And the surface?" "Demolished according to plan. From orbit, these worlds look abandoned. We even left some fake ruins for their scouts to find. Broken equipment, scattered belongings, the whole sad story of humanity's retreat." In the Oort cloud, nearly a full light year from the sun, construction workers in advanced spacesuits assembled ships that did not officially exist. The designs were radical, incorporating technology humanity had developed but never deployed. Stealth systems that bent light and radiation around the hull. AI combat systems far beyond what the Council had seen. Weapons that used principles the Council did not know humanity understood. Chief Engineer Robert Santos floated in zero gravity, watching as the first Ghost-class destroyer took shape. It looked nothing like a human ship. It looked nothing like any ship in the known galaxy. It was designed by AIs who had studied 10,000 years of alien warfare and found every weakness, every blind spot, every assumption. "Beautiful, isn't she?" said his assistant. Santos shook his head. "She's a nightmare. The Council is going to wake up one day and find these things have destroyed half their infrastructure before they even know we're back." "Isn't that the point?" "Yeah, it is. Doesn't mean I have to like it." But he kept working, because the alternative was extinction. On Earth, in a facility buried beneath 2 miles of Antarctic ice, the Revenant program was creating the next generation of human soldiers. The volunteers knew what they were signing up for. Neural implants that would link their minds together. Genetic modifications that would enhance speed, strength, and reflexes. Biological changes that would make them something more than human, and possibly something less. Wu watched as the latest batch completed their integration. 20 men and women, their eyes now showing the faint silver sheen of neural enhancement, stood at attention with perfect synchronization. Squad 7, Run Combat Simulation Theta. They moved as one organism, flowing through the training course with inhuman precision. Their minds were networked, sharing information faster than speech, coordinating attacks that no normal squad could execute. When they finished, their commanding officer approached Dr. Wu. "They're ready, sir. They're terrifying, but they're ready." Wu felt a chill. "Get them onto the transport. They ship to the Kuiper facility next week." Months passed. The Council's monitoring stations reported exactly what they expected to see. Human ships returning to Sol. No attempts to break the blockade, no military movements, just a defeated species limping home. What they did not see was the ghost fleet growing in the outer dark. What they did not see was the hidden colonies establishing new settlements in unclaimed systems, using stealth transports that slipped past monitors during periods of high solar activity. What they did not see was the intelligence network Sarah Chen was building, recruiting disaffected aliens who resented the Council's tyranny. The year was almost up when Admiral Reeves called his final pre-operation meeting. Every screen showed a different facility, a different commander, a different piece of the vast machine humanity had built in secret. "Status," he said simply. "Ghost Fleet, operational. 147 vessels ready for deployment. Revenant Corps, 12,000 enhanced soldiers, fully trained. Hidden colonies, established in 17 unclaimed systems. Total population, 4.2 million. Intelligence network, active in 32 Council species, including embedded assets in Veltharian Military Command. Resource production, running at 300% of pre-banishment levels." Reeves listened to each report. Then he spoke quietly. "The deadline is in 2 weeks. We will send our final compliance message. We will make them think we have accepted our cage. And then we will show them what happens when you corner humanity." He paused, looking at all the faces on the screens. They wanted to banish us. They wanted to lock us away from the stars forever. They made one simple mistake. They gave us a year to prepare. They gave us time to get angry. They gave us time to plan. His voice hardened. "In 2 weeks, we go to war. Not for conquest, not for revenge, for the simple right to exist, to walk among the stars, to be free." The screens went dark. The long night was ending. The dawn would be written in fire. The message from Sol reached Concordia Prime exactly on schedule. Ambassador Chen's replacement, a junior diplomat named Michael Torres, delivered it with perfect humility. "The United Earth Council confirms full compliance with the banishment decree. All colonies have been evacuated. All human vessels have returned to the Sol system. We will honor the terms of our sentence." Thessalon's crystalline form pulsed with satisfaction. "The Council acknowledges humanity's compliance. You may keep your system in peace. We will not trouble you further as long as you remain within your boundaries." Torres bowed deeply and left. The Council turned to other matters. The human problem was solved. 18 months later, Fortress Thalvex went silent. The Veltharian Empire's most powerful military installation simply stopped transmitting. Every communication channel went dead. Every scheduled check-in was missed. The fortress monitored the approach to Veltharian core systems, and its silence was unprecedented in 600 years of operation. The Veltharian High Command dispatched a battle group to investigate. 12 heavy cruisers, the pride of their fleet, made the jump to Thalvex, expecting equipment failure or perhaps a minor rebellion among the garrison. What they found was devastation. The orbital defense platforms were debris, massive guns that could destroy a fleet, or twisted metal floating in space. The garrison, 10,000 of the Veltharian Empire's finest soldiers, was dead to the last individual. And on every wall of the fortress, written in perfect Veltharian script, using what analysis later confirmed was Valtharian blood, was a single sentence. You should have left us alone. The news reached Concordia Prime within hours. The council chamber erupted into chaos. 800 species, all talking at once, demanding explanations, casting accusations, calling for action. Thessalon's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Silence! The chamber fell quiet. This was humanity, the Xerix representative said. It must have been. No other species would dare. Impossible, countered the Aquilin delegate. Humanity is confined to Sol. Our monitoring stations would have detected any vessel leaving their system. Then perhaps, Sarah Chen said quietly from the human delegation seat, your monitoring stations are not as effective as you believed. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. She had returned to Concordia Prime 3 months ago, ostensibly to maintain diplomatic relations. Now she stood calmly, her face showing no emotion. Are you confessing to an act of war? The Veltharian representative demanded. I am stating a fact. Your monitoring is incomplete. And Thalvex is only the beginning. Before anyone could respond, alerts began screaming across the chamber. Representatives grabbed personal communicators, their faces going pale or green, or whatever color their species displayed shock. The Xerix relay station at Becara, destroyed. The Veltharian shipyard at Corinthia, burning. The Council's major communication hub at Nexus 9, offline. All within the same hour. Admiral Reeves watched the chaos unfold from his command ship, hidden in the debris field of a dead solar system. His tactical display showed the positions of 30 Ghost Fleet vessels, all of them having struck simultaneously across a region spanning hundreds of light years. Phase 1 complete, Commander Park reported. All targets destroyed, 0 casualties on our side. Enemy response time averaged 43 minutes, exactly as projected. All ships are withdrawing to Rally Point Delta. Begin Phase 2. The Ghost Fleet was a revelation in warfare. Each ship was small, fast, and nearly invisible to standard detection. They traveled dark, their advanced AI calculating paths through gravity wells and radiation zones that masked their passage. They struck without warning, their weapons calibrated to destroy infrastructure without mass civilian casualties. Humanity had learned the Council's first lesson well. They were not strong enough to win a conventional war, so they would not fight one. Instead, they fought like ghosts, appearing from nowhere, destroying carefully selected targets, and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The Council's response was predictable and exactly what Reeves had counted on. They sent hunter-killer groups to patrol major routes. They reinforced shipyards and military stations. They pulled forces back from the frontier to protect core systems. Every ship they assigned to defense was a ship that could not be used for offense. Every soldier standing guard was a soldier not expanding their territory. Every credit spent on patrols was a credit not invested in their economy. The war became a bleeding wound, small, constant, impossible to close. Then the Xerix Collective made a mistake. They sent their elite Vanguard Corps, cybernetic warriors, who had never been defeated in 300 years of service, to hunt human raiders. They found them on an abandoned mining station in the frontier territories. The Vanguard commander, a veteran named Zektoth, led 200 of his finest soldiers into the station's corridors. The revenants were waiting. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, Zektoth was the only survivor, and only because the humans wanted him to be. They let him walk out, let him return to his ship, let him deliver his combat recordings to the Xerix High Command. The recordings showed something that made the entire collective pause. Enhanced humans moving with impossible speed, their reflexes faster than cybernetic enhancement, their coordination perfect because their minds were literally linked. They flowed through combat like water, each one knowing what the others would do before they did it. One Revenant squad had killed 200 Xerix Vanguard with minimal injuries. The recordings spread across the council networks. Fear spread with them. Sarah Chen used that fear like a weapon. She began receiving visitors in her quarters on Concordia Prime. Representatives from smaller species, ones who had always been overshadowed by the Veltharian Empire and Xerix Collective. The Hydraxian delegate came first, a water breather in an environment suit. "We wish to discuss neutrality," they said carefully. "The Hydraxian Confederacy has no quarrel with humanity. We question whether this war serves our interests." Sarah smiled. "Neutrality is acceptable. Trade would be even better." Trade with a banished species? The Council's rules are only rules because species accept them. Your people are traders by nature. We can offer technology, resources, and most importantly, a relationship built on mutual respect rather than enforced hierarchy. The Hydraxian was silent for a long moment. "What guarantee do we have that humanity will not turn on us as you have turned on the Council?" "We did not turn on the Council. They turned on us first. We are not conquerors. We simply refuse to be caged. Join us, and you will see that humanity makes better allies than the species that treat you as vassals." One by one, species began to defect. Some declared neutrality. Others signed secret trade agreements. A few, the boldest ones, began sharing intelligence about Council military movements. The Great Alliance started to crack. 6 months into the war, the Veltharian Empire assembled a massive fleet. Over 3,000 warships, the largest battle group in living memory. They had one target, Earth itself. They would crush humanity in its home system and end this war. The fleet jumped into Sol, expecting to find a desperate defense, perhaps a few dozen ships protecting their homeworld. Instead, they found hell. Admiral Reeves had turned the entire solar system into a fortress. Every asteroid, every moon, every planet had weapons. The Ghost Fleet emerged from hiding, supported by the rebuilt human navy, supported by defense platforms that had been constructed in secret, supported by allies who had decided that the Council's tyranny had lasted long enough. The Battle of Sol lasted 2 days. When it was over, fewer than 200 Veltharian ships limped away. Admiral Reeves stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the debris field that had once been the pride of the Veltharian military. "Pursue them?" Commander Park asked. "No, let them run. Let them tell the Council what happened here." But he smiled as he gave the next order. "Ghost Fleet, prepare for deep strike operations. Target, Velthara Prime. It's time to end this war." The hunters had become the hunted, and humanity was done playing defense. The news of the Battle of Sol spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. 3,000 ships reduced to scattered debris. The Veltharian Empire, which had dominated galactic politics for millennia, humiliated in its own attempted genocide. The council chamber on Concordia Prime was quieter than it had been in years. Representatives sat in stunned silence as Thessalon tried to maintain order. "We must respond with overwhelming force," the remaining Veltharian representative insisted. His voice carried desperation now, not authority. "Every council species must contribute ships. We must assemble a fleet 10 times the size. And lose 10 times as many ships?" The Aquilon delegates' feathers ruffled in agitation. "The Aquilon Federation contributed 12 vessels to your fleet. None returned. You want us to send more of our people to die for your pride? This is about maintaining the Pax Galactica. The Pax Galactica that banished an entire species for defending themselves." The voice came from the Hydraxian delegation. "Perhaps it is time to question whether this peace was ever just." Thessalon's crystalline body flared with light. "Order. The Council will maintain order." But the order was breaking. The facade of unity was cracking, and everyone could see it. In her quarters, Sarah Chen met with her 5th visitor of the day. The Muradian ambassador, a floating jellyfish-like being, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that her translator converted to speech. "My people wish to withdraw from the council," the Maraudian said. "We are a peaceful species. We never wanted this war. The Veltharians demanded our support, but we see now that supporting them means supporting injustice." Sarah nodded carefully. "Withdrawal is a significant step. The council may view it as betrayal. We have reviewed the human claims. We have seen the evidence that was suppressed during your trial. The Krenth attacked your colonies first. You defended yourselves. The council punished you for surviving. This is not justice. This is tyranny. What will your people do?" The Meridian pulsed with colors Sarah's translator identified as determination. "We will declare neutrality. We will open our space to human vessels, and we will tell others the truth about what really happened." She was the 5th defector this week. 17 species had now either withdrawn from the council or declared neutrality. The great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was dissolving, and Admiral Reeves was about to accelerate that dissolution. His fleet approached Velthera Prime with caution. The homeworld of the Veltharian Empire was not poorly defended. Hundreds of orbital platforms surrounded the planet. Thousands of ships patrolled the system. Billions of Veltharians lived on the surface, and throughout the system's dozens of inhabited stations. But the Battle of Sol had broken something in the Veltharian military command. Their ships were positioned defensively, clustered close to the planet. They were not hunting for attackers. They were cowering. "This almost feels unfair," Commander Park said quietly. "War is unfair," Reeves replied. "That's why smart people try to avoid it. Open a channel to the surface." The Veltharian Empress appeared on the screen, her 6 arms folded in a posture of rigid dignity. Behind her, Reeves could see advisors frantically working at stations, likely coordinating the defense. "Admiral Reeves, you dare bring your fleet to our homeworld?" "I do, and I want to make something very clear, Empress. My weapons are locked on your orbital defense grid. I can destroy it in approximately 40 minutes. After that, your planet is defenseless. But I am not here to commit genocide." The Empress's bronze skin darkened with anger. "You think we will surrender to—" "I think you will listen," Reeves interrupted. "Because the alternative is that I demonstrate what humanity is actually capable of when we stop holding back. Your fleet at Sol was destroyed because we were being merciful. We targeted your ships, not your crews. We disabled, rather than obliterated. We could have killed every single Veltharian in that fleet. We chose not to." He leaned forward. "But I am done being merciful. You have 1 hour to stand down your defenses and surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, I will systematically destroy every military asset in this system, every ship, every platform, every orbital station. And then I will leave, and you can explain to your people why their empire fell because you were too proud to admit you were wrong." The Empress stared at him with something that might have been hatred or might have been fear, probably both. "And if we surrender? Then this war ends. You acknowledge that humanity has the right to exist in galactic space. You support the dissolution of the old council and the creation of a new governing body with actual democratic representation. And you accept that the age of elder species ruling over everyone else is finished." The channel went silent for a moment. Then the Empress spoke to someone off-screen. Reeves could not hear the conversation, but he saw her shoulders slump. "We surrender," she said quietly. "Velthara Prime stands down. You have won, Admiral." Reeves felt no triumph, only exhaustion. "I'll send terms within the hour." Reeves out. The channel closed. Commander Park let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. "We actually did it. We actually beat the Veltharian Empire." "We didn't beat them," Reeves said. "We convinced them that beating us would cost more than they were willing to pay. There's a difference." But word of Velthara's surrender spread even faster than news of the Battle of Sol. Within days, 15 more species withdrew from the Council. Within weeks, the Xerix Collective announced they were re-evaluating their position. The old Galactic Council was dying, and Sarah Chen was already building its replacement. She called it the Stellar Assembly. Every species would have representation, not based on how old their civilization was or how many systems they controlled, but on the simple principle that every sapient species deserved a voice. Decisions would be made by vote, not by decree. Laws would apply equally to everyone, not just to the species deemed uncivilized. The first session of the Stellar Assembly convened on Concordia Prime 3 months after Velthara's surrender. 112 species sent representatives, not as many as the old council, but it was a start. Thessalon attended as an observer, no longer an elder speaker, but simply one representative among many. Sarah watched as he took a seat in the assembly, his crystalline body dimmer than she remembered. "You destroyed everything we built," he said to her quietly before the session began. "No," Sarah replied, "we destroyed everything you built on the foundation of subjugation and fear. What we are building now will be better. Different, certainly, but better. You cannot know that. You're right, we cannot know, but we are willing to try. That is the difference between humanity and the Council. You chose certainty and stagnation. We choose risk and growth." The first vote of the Stellar Assembly was unanimous. The Pax Galactica was formally dissolved. The banishment of humanity was declared unlawful and void. And most importantly, restrictions on AI, genetic modification, and military doctrine were lifted, replaced with regulations that applied equally to all species. The meeting ended with a proposal from the Meridian delegation. Establish a joint research initiative to share technology freely among willing species. 17 species signed the initial agreement. Humanity contributed their AI systems, their genetic modification techniques, and their advanced stealth technology. Other species contributed their own innovations. Within a year, medical advances that would have taken decades under the old council were being distributed freely. Terraforming techniques improved exponentially. Communication networks became faster and more reliable. The galaxy entered a renaissance, and humanity was at its center. But not everyone was celebrating. Admiral Reeves sat in his office on Mars, looking at reports from the Revenant Corps. The enhanced soldiers who had won the war were struggling in peacetime. Their modifications made them perfect warriors, but poorly suited for civilian life. Their neural networks, designed for combat coordination, left them feeling isolated when not linked with their squads. Dr. Wu had established counseling programs. Governor Okonkwo had created jobs programs. But nothing quite solved the problem of what to do with 12,000 people who had been turned into something more and less than human. Reeves made a note to address the issue at the next assembly meeting. They had won the war. Now came the harder task of winning the peace. Sarah Chen found him late that night, still in his office. "You should rest, Marcus. The war is over." "Is it?" He gestured at the reports. "We broke the council. We freed the galaxy from tyranny. But we also created problems we don't know how to solve. The Revenants, the allies who signed on expecting spoils we never promised them. The species that resent us for upending the order they had accepted. Nothing worth doing is easy." "When did you become an optimist?" She smiled. "When I watched our species refuse to die quietly. We were banished, Marcus. We were told to accept extinction. Instead, we rewrote the rules of galactic civilization. If we can do that, we can handle whatever comes next." He nodded slowly. "I hope you're right." Outside, the lights of human settlements on Mars twinkled in the thin atmosphere. Beyond Mars, the hidden colonies were emerging from underground, their populations growing. Beyond them, human ships traveled freely for the first time, carrying explorers and traders and dreamers to worlds the Council had kept forbidden. The war had been won. The real work was just beginning. The Treaty of New Concordia was signed 5 years after humanity's banishment. Representatives from 237 species gathered to witness what many were calling the most important document in galactic history. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, now officially titled the first speaker of the Stellar Assembly. Her hair had gone gray at the temples, and the lines around her eyes spoke of years spent mediating between species that had been enemies just months before. "This treaty represents a simple principle," she said to the assembled delegates, "that no species should be judged by their potential for violence, but by their commitment to cooperation. That laws should protect all species equally, not just the powerful. That the galaxy belongs to everyone who has the courage to reach for the stars." The signing took 6 hours, as each delegation added their mark to the digital document. Some signed eagerly, others signed reluctantly, knowing the old order was gone, whether they liked it or not. When it was done, the galaxy had a new government. The Stellar Assembly had real power now, backed by mutual defense pacts and economic agreements. But more importantly, it had legitimacy. Species joined because they chose to, not because they were forced. Humanity did not dominate the new order. Sarah had been very careful about that. Humans held leadership positions, yes, but so did Veltharians, Xerics, Hydraxians, Meridians, and dozens of other species. The goal was not to replace one empire with another, but to create something genuinely new. Still, everyone knew humanity's influence was enormous. They had won the war. They had shattered the old council. They had proven that even a young species could change the galaxy if pushed hard enough. Admiral Reeves attended the signing ceremony in his full dress uniform. He was retired now, having handed over command of the fleet to Commander Park, but his presence was still significant. Every military officer in the known galaxy studied his campaigns. The Battle of Sol was taught in tactical courses across hundreds of worlds. After the ceremony, he found himself surrounded by young officers from a dozen species, all asking questions about strategy and leadership. "How did you defeat a force 30 times your size?" a Xerix ensign asked. Reeves smiled slightly. "I did not try to defeat them. I tried to make defeating us too expensive to be worth the cost. There is a difference. If the Veltharian Empire had been willing to spend 1,000,000 ships and 1,000,000,000,000 lives, they could have destroyed Earth. But they were not willing to pay that price. So we won, without having to destroy them." An Aquilin lieutenant raised a feathered wing. "But you were willing to fight to extinction if necessary, correct?" "Because we had nothing left to lose. The Council had already sentenced us to death. We simply chose to die on our feet, rather than on our knees." The officers absorbed this quietly. Then a human captain spoke up. "Sir, what do you think is humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy?" Reeves considered the question carefully. "Not our weapons, not our tactics. Our greatest contribution is the simple refusal to accept that things must stay as they have always been. Every species before us accepted the Council's judgment as final. We did not. We looked at 10,000 years of tradition and said, this is wrong, and we will change it. That stubbornness, that refusal to accept fate, that is what we gave the galaxy." The crowd dispersed eventually, leaving Reeves alone with his thoughts. He looked out the massive windows of Concordia Prime, at the ships docked there. Human vessels, yes, but also Veltharian cruisers, and Xerix explorers, and Meridian traders, all working together. 5 years ago, this would have been unthinkable. On New Terra, Governor Okonkwo stood on the surface for the first time in years. The underground cities were still there, still populated, but now they were connected to surface settlements again. The planet was being rebuilt, this time openly. She watched as a group of human children played with young Veltharians, their 6 arms making them popular in games that required catching multiple balls. A Hydraxian merchant was setting up a water-filled shop in the town square. A Xerix engineer was helping to repair the old power grid, his cybernetic enhancements making the work easier. "Strange, isn't it?" her deputy said. "5 years ago, we were preparing for extinction. Now we are building a future with the same species that tried to destroy us." Okonkwo nodded. "Not the same species. The Veltharian Empire tried to destroy us. But these Veltharians are just people trying to live their lives. That is the lesson, I think. We did not fight a species. We fought a system. And now we are building a better one." The Revenant Corps remained the most difficult legacy of the war. Dr. Wu's counseling programs helped some. Many Revenants found purpose in training the new Stellar Assembly Defense Forces, their enhanced abilities making them ideal instructors. Others joined exploration missions, their networked minds valuable for coordinating complex operations in unknown space. But some could not adapt. The modifications that made them perfect soldiers made civilian life feel empty and meaningless. Suicide rates among Revenants were alarmingly high. Dr. Wu stood before a committee of the Stellar Assembly, presenting his latest proposal. "We cannot undo what was done to these soldiers, but we can offer them purpose. I propose the creation of the Frontier Corps, a volunteer organization dedicated to exploring and settling the galaxy's most dangerous regions. Revenants would be ideal for this work. Their enhancements would keep them alive in hostile environments. Their coordination would make them effective teams. And most importantly, it would give them a mission again." The proposal passed unanimously. Within a year, Revenant teams were establishing settlements in regions no other species would dare to enter. They thrived in the challenge, their abilities finally finding a peacetime use. The technology sharing initiative exceeded everyone's expectations. Humanity's AI systems, combined with Xerix cybernetic enhancement, created medical diagnostics that could detect diseases years before symptoms appeared. Veltharian genetic engineering, shared freely for the first time, helped terraform marginal worlds into garden planets. Hydraxian aquaculture techniques, enhanced with human automation, solved food shortage problems that had plagued dozens of species. The galaxy was changing faster than it had in millennia. 10 years after the banishment, the first joint colony was established. The world was called Unity, and it was settled by volunteers from 40 different species. Humans, Veltharians, Xerix, Hydraxians, and dozens of others, all building a society together from the ground up. Sarah Chen visited Unity for its 10th anniversary celebration. She was old now, her hair completely white, her movements slower, but her eyes were still sharp. The Veltharian co-governor of Unity approached her during the ceremony. "First Speaker Chen, I wanted to thank you. My grandparents fought in the war against humanity. They believed your species was a plague that needed to be eliminated. I was raised on those stories. But now I live here, alongside humans and dozens of other species, and I understand how wrong they were." "They were not entirely wrong," Sarah said quietly. "Humanity can be dangerous, we proved that. But so can any species when pushed to desperation. The question is not whether we can be dangerous, but what we choose to do with that potential." The ceremony concluded with a moment of silence for those who died in the war. Human and Veltharian names were read aloud, side by side, remembered not as enemies, but as victims of a system that valued pride over peace. When it was over, Sarah found a quiet spot overlooking the colony. Admiral Reeves joined her, walking with a cane now, but still carrying himself with military bearing. "We did it, Marcus. We survived. We won. We built something new." "We did," he agreed. "But I wonder sometimes what we lost along the way. The revenants, the billions spent on weapons instead of schools. The years of fear and anger. "The cost of refusing to die quietly," Sarah said. "History will judge whether it was worth it." They stood in silence, watching as the sun set over Unity. Human children played with Valtharian young. Xerix workers shared drinks with Hydraxian traders. Species that had been enemies for generations were now neighbors, friends, family. A young human girl approached them, perhaps 7 years old, holding a drawing. "Are you the first speaker?" she asked Sarah. Sarah replied, "I am. My teacher said you saved humanity. I made you a picture." The drawing showed a simple scene, stick figures of different colors and shapes, all holding hands beneath the sun and stars. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. "Thank you. This is beautiful." "What is it?" "It's everyone," the girl said simply. "All the different people, all together. My teacher says that's what you fought for." After the girl ran off, Sarah showed the drawing to Reeves. "That," she said, "is why it was worth it. She will grow up in a galaxy where species work together instead of fearing each other, where laws protect everyone equally, where no one can be banished for refusing to die." Reeves nodded slowly. "The Council tried to cage us, to lock us away from the stars forever. They forgot that humans do not accept cages. We break them, or we die trying." "And we broke them," Sarah said. "Not just for us, for everyone who was trapped under the old system. The war was not about humanity conquering the galaxy, it was about refusing to let the galaxy conquer us." She looked up at the stars, visible now as night fell. Somewhere up there, human ships traveled freely. The hidden colonies were thriving. New settlements were being established on worlds the Council had declared forbidden. Humanity had been judged unfit for civilized space. So they had redefined what civilization meant. They had been sentenced to eternal imprisonment. So they had torn down the prison and freed everyone inside. They had been told their place was in one small system, never to reach for the stars again. And they had responded by teaching the galaxy that no one, not even ancient empires that had ruled for 10,000 years, had the right to tell humanity where they belonged. The stars were home now, not just for humans, but for all species willing to reach for them. And that, Sarah thought as she held the child's drawing, was worth every sacrifice they had made. The galaxy had tried to banish humanity. Instead, humanity had transformed the galaxy itself. The war was over. The future had begun.